Oh, it's you. Come on in. Welcome to the Scumm Bar. Welcome to the Scumm Bar Podcast, episode 49, where we talk movies, video games, pop culture, books, Palpatine, and everything in between. I'm your host, Mattbrush, and with me today, from the Death Star, we've brought you on the slave ship, is that what it was called? Slaver 1 or whatever? We've brought a special guest for you. Please, sir, introduce yourself.
Rice. Fried rice.
Fried rice.
Is what I want to have right now. Do I actually sound like him? Oh, I'm Anth0z, by the way. But hi.
Nice.
Do I sound like him?
I think so. You just got to be a little bit more cheesy and old.
Rice.
Rice.
Do I sound old?
Rice.
Wait, didn't you say Palpatine 2 episodes ago? So
probably did. But
we're just gonna keep it going.
It's so relevant now, though.
It's super relevant. Yeah.
Ah, man, because Palpatine is secretly the best of all things. Anyways, welcome to the Scumm Bar Podcast here on this special Star Wars Rise of Skywalker episode, where we are going to talk all things Rise of Skywalker, what we think about it, what it is, what it was, what it wanted to be, and everything more.
And if you know, you know.
Yeah, exactly. If you already know, then you know.
Yeah.
We also are going to be talking about spoilers, so I don't think it's a very big deal for any of you. You're probably not listening to this anyways unless you already have seen it, but if you have not seen it, I will warn you now, we will be spoiling the movie. Probably
the whole
right away,
movie.
Without even really realizing.
We've memorized the whole script. We're going to go through every single thing, but we're condensing it into our hour and 12-minute podcast. I'm calling it. This podcast is going to be an hour and 12 minutes.
If it is exactly, I'm going to be shocked, but good job.
Thank you
for calling that.
Thank you.
Anth0z, I don't think we have time anyways, but let's do it anyways. Let's go into a joke.
Okay.
Do a joke?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. What do you call it when you pull a practical joke on a pirate?
A planktical joke.
I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to
What?
give it to you because the answer was a plank.
Oh,
You used the same word in the wrong context, but you technically got it right. So good job.
all right. I'm getting better at these jokes.
You
I
must
guess.
have the Force.
I do have. It's the plank force.
Anth0z, Rise of Skywalker. What, you saw it not that long ago, right? How long ago was it?
I feel like it's been a long time now because so much has happened since then. But
yeah, and I took so long to see it. I just saw it 2 days ago, so
it's okay. I tried to watch some recaps, so that I could just to make sure I can kind of visualize what the scenes were again. Although I have had plenty of chances to talk about it, because there are a lot of people talking about it, you know, this way or that, but more so. Well, I don't know about you, but I found more people just throwing shade at it, just overall.
For sure.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of why I've had so much time to talk about it, because, you know, people just want to rant. The rise of rant. And
that's so
the rant of
I'll
Skywalker.
try my best not to.
Let's see. I actually wanted to start off by guessing whether you liked it or not. And I'm going to go
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go
ahead.
Okay, so I was really torn. Like, I think as I was watching it, I was actually thinking about if you would like it or not. Like, during the movie, I'm like, would Mattbrush like this? And most of me wants to say no. Part of me wants to say yes, because I feel like there were some elements that I could just picture you liking it. But I'm gonna go with overall. Overall, no, you did not like it. But you enjoyed it. Like, you didn't mind just watching it and just getting through it. But you're tired of Star Wars now.
Your reaction is very correct, in the sense that you didn't know what I was thinking, because I still am not entirely sure how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that at this moment, it is my second or favorite of the sequel trilogy.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
So it's that or The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
I can't tell which one I like better.
Right.
And the thing is, these sequel trilogy movies are so separate.
Oh yeah.
but you can tell the J.J. Abrams ones because of the chemistry on the actors, and you can tell the Rian Johnson ones because of the pacing and the change of script. It's a very different, like the script is trying to tell you something completely different in The Last Jedi than what the other two scripts are trying to tell. But there is a lot of negative I have for Rise of Skywalker, but it's not negative in the same sense of how I had with Last Jedi. Last Jedi, I had negative thoughts towards it because of what the movie was, what it was trying to tell. And with Rise of Skywalker, I have negative thoughts, more production value, more what happened because they were trying to fix things, right? More things that I feel like wasn't the control of the director or the actors or any of that. More things that I felt got pulled away from them, so we didn't get the movie we wanted to get, kind of thing. It's probably how people felt when watching Suicide Squad or when watching Batman vs Superman, where they're like, we understand, or Justice League, where they were saying like, we understand there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that have changed the movie to make it the way it is now. Yeah. And because of that sucks, because I would like to see it a different way. And that's kind of where I'm at, I think, with Rise of Skywalker. So I didn't necessarily love it, but I definitely didn't hate it. I had a lot of fun watching it. So.
Okay, cool. So fun for me is definitely the key word. I had a lot of fun watching it as well. I don't know where I would put it in my top movies for Star Wars, like as a whole, but I'd probably agree with you for being tied for Force Awakens. I think one thing that makes it a little bit difficult for me is that, like, coming off of watching it recently, you're kind of on that, or I'm kind of on that high of really enjoying it. So I feel like I would need to watch them, like, all three, so episode 7, 8, 9, like back to back, in order to properly rank them. Because coming out of that movie, out of The Rise of Skywalker, and for the next week or so, I was like, oh man, that was so fun. Like, I'm so glad that that's just how it turned out. Like, I really enjoyed myself. And if that is the way that they're ending, which is likely the way that they're not ending Star Wars movies forever. Well, we know that they're not, but I mean,
it'll never end. Yeah.
No, but in terms of doing trilogies, I don't know if that's something that's been announced, right? So, if this is the way that they're ending trilogies, I like the ending. There obviously are some questions there that have been brought up because of that movie. Some things that now are like, okay, is this going to be answered later on? Not entirely sure, but yeah, overall, I definitely enjoyed it. What was I going to say? I would still agree with people that have been saying, overall, the storyline, or there's so many things that happen in this movie, in terms of, sorry,
happen to you as you just sit there trying to watch a movie. It's just happening at you.
Yeah, we're just getting affected by it. But I guess the way that I used to interpret the trilogies is that the first episode of each trilogy, we just have some sort of starting point, and throughout the second episode of the trilogy, it starts diverging. So we start to see each of the stories and each of the characters kind of having their own paths to follow. And then by the third episode, in a way, they kind of come full circle, or they at least like come together, they come to a close. But I would agree with people saying that, I have talked to people about saying that this episode's episode 9, it's not necessarily following that same route. In fact, it almost seems like it's kind of blown up, like even more paths out of nowhere, or more, I guess, more questions for each of the characters. But at the same time,
a Marvel effect.
Actually, yeah, that's right.
Because like they don't know what the studio wants, so they have to end it on a way where they're like, we'll just end it so that the studio isn't like screwed for making more content afterwards.
Yeah. So yeah, they definitely left some stuff open ended. Some other things they've closed, which I was actually happy about, and we'll get more into that later. But yeah, that's kind of my first overall impression. Actually, that's more than a first impression, but yeah.
In case we don't get to it later, I just want to state that just because I don't think this sequel trilogy is all that great, I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's all that great either. Yeah. That doesn't mean the prequel movies are better in any means. Right. I definitely want to make sure that we're clear that the prequel movies I personally don't think are very good.
Yeah.
Attack the Clones, I don't even think I can watch anymore. Which is funny because Phantom Menace, a lot of people will get mad on, but I actually don't think that one's that terrible. I think there's a lot of bad stuff to it, but I don't think it's that terrible.
Yeah.
And Attack the Clones, I can't even watch. And then Revenge of the Sith is actually still not bad. It's It's got a lot of questionable moments, but it's still watchable.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I'd watch Last Jedi before I'd watch any of those movies. So the sequel trilogy is still better than the prequel trilogy by far. So even if this movie, even if Rise of Skywalker was a disaster, I'd watch the sequel trilogy many times before I'd watch the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
It's good to know that now that the Rise of Skywalker is out, we can finally close out the sequel trilogy and see everything about it. So it's nice to see all that.
So what do we call it? We call it the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, and then the sequel trilogy.
Yes.
So prequel, original, sequel. Okay, cool. In case I get lost, in case I get derailed.
I think that's like the most common way of naming them. I'm sure there's other names, but that's what I've seen floating around online. So.
Okay.
So I've got some questions and things I wrote down to kind of help us with what we want to talk about here.
Sure.
Hopefully we cover everything we can, but at the same time, it's hard to say because we'll probably talk about this movie in the future too. We'll come back to it.
We definitely will. Yeah.
I know with Last Jedi, I'm not as harsh on it now as I was back then. Coming out of the theater of Last Jedi, I was really upset with it, but these days I've enjoyed more of the moments that I've thought about later on.
Yeah.
I know I always liked the Kylo and Ren stuff in those movies, but I started liking
the Kylo and
Luke
Ren
stuff.
Kylo and Rey.
Sorry, Kylo and
the
Rey.
Kylo and Ren.
Kylo and Rey. I always liked those moments, even when I was in the theater watching that movie. But as I've thought about it later on, I've started liking the Luke moments a bit more and more, which is really strange. And I also didn't like the ending to Last Jedi, but now I'm starting to really like the ending of Last Jedi. But I'll get to that later.
Okay.
So one of the things I want to say before we really get into it, why don't you name a few things that you thought were really good, like small moments that you were just like, this is really good of this movie.
Let's see. Some of the specifically this movie. Let's see. I think a lot of my kind of I guess a lot of the things that I've liked overall that I've realized in the Rise of Skywalker are based on things that have happened throughout the whole sequel trilogy.
Okay.
But at least I can just talk about specifically in this in the Rise of Skywalker. I'm actually happy about the way that Kylo and Rey's relationship turned out, because for one, I don't mind that there's some sort of predictability to it. Like I like that in movies. I like having a mixture of predictability, but also some surprises. But in terms of their relationship, I felt that they made it grow properly. Like I felt like it went in the right direction. It went to the way that it seemed like that they were hinting towards. I think I might have mentioned a couple episodes back that my imagination of maybe what balancing the Force would be, or could be, would include maybe one of either Kylo or Rey sacrificing themselves. And ended up being Kylo Ren. So
actually, you were way more accurate on that. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what I said, but I had a feeling
your prediction in the past, though. Yeah, you were definitely going down the right track.
Okay. So in terms of their relationship, the way that I've been explaining it to people is what I've seen is that so with Kylo Ren specifically, he had always been saying, let go of the past. And he's the one that's been trying to reach out to Rey this whole time and trying to tell her that like he knows her, and he can, I guess he can help her become better than what she is. But either way, they've shown a great deal of how much that their relationship actually strengthened their connection. Or I guess what I'm trying to say is that when he kind of let go of I guess like his dad, his mom to some extent, he's always been conflicted, right? So and Rey was always able to sense that he always had some good in him, but throughout everything he was always the one that was conflicted. And gradually we get to see more of him connecting with Rey. First it was just their encounter back in episode 7, and then they do their lightsaber dance, and then they see that, or Kylo Ren sees that they're quite even in terms of I guess like strength and usability of the Force for whatever reason, but it kind of makes him seek out more answers to grow as much as she does. So it's kind of like they're like on their own, they're both growing at their own pace, but kind of like it's like a parallel. And then eventually in episode 8 we see that they're able to connect each other or connect to each other through the Force. They can see each other, and they can even we got the hint of when there's that water that ends up on Kylo Ren from when she's
Last Jedi, when they're
in the Last
communicating,
Jedi. And then now in episode 9 we see that they can actually do like a full-on lightsaber battle while like using the Force, like they're not even next to each other, right? So
right.
I feel like that kind of progression, that connection that has progressed, I feel like has also similarly shown how much, I guess I kind of want to say love, but I guess affection too. Like it's a specific kind of relationship that they have, right? She's trying to pull him while he's trying to pull her. They're
right.
pretty much just trying to do something good for each other. And eventually we see that he's finally seeing what the, I guess, like the light side. He's finally able to remove himself of that conflict and do what he actually sees is right, and then goes to help Rey, sacrifices himself in order for her to live on. I think because he's now seeing that she is I guess she's very pivotal in terms of maybe sustaining the Force or whatever it is. But okay, so I'm gonna talk about the kiss. And just before it happened, like I think everybody could tell in the theater that like, oh, this is gonna happen, like it's totally leading to it. In my head I was thinking, no, don't let this happen, this is too cheesy, don't do it. And then after, I think like a few seconds after it happened, I was like, you know what, something about this actually makes sense to me, just based on like everything that they've gone through up to this point. Like he basically died, just about, and she brought him back to life, and he and then now he's doing the same for her. I feel like, if I were Rey in this situation, after both of them had gone through so much just to take down the Emperor, and I just came back to life because this person brought me back to life. This person who I've had so much struggles with, but a deep connection with. If this person brought me back to life, I'm pretty sure my emotions would be like all over the place, and I would do the exact same thing. So because of that, I feel like the kiss in a way is warranted. That they had, it's like their connection kind of brought them close to the most loving, potentially loving relationship that either of them have ever had in their whole lives, because they were like, Rey was like, she was dropped from her parents from day one, or well, I mean, she, based on her knowledge, she was didn't have a chance to be with her parents growing up, and Kylo in this whole time had just been puppeteered by Sidious. Well, now that we've revealed in the 9th movie that he's been puppeteered this whole time, so who can he even trust? And he's the one that severed the ties with his dad, lost his mom. So I feel like because they both lost so much chance to find some sort of relationship, that it made sense to me that theirs ended up like the way it did. There's a few things that I like about this movie.
That's good. I mean, I'll agree with you. I think that they handled those two very well. Out of the whole sequel trilogy, those two have been the most driving force of it. Like, that's the most interesting thing about it. Mm-hmm. It's a very symbiotic relationship. It's very yin and yang between the two of them. And I think they showed it off very well. And I wasn't surprised when they kissed at all. So okay. I was actually a bit shocked to hear your thoughts on that, because for me, I think I've been waiting this whole trilogy for them to finally kiss, because I've been thinking that they were a couple since like the first movie, actually, when he's like, even when he's like interrogating her in the thing and he's like talking about how he sees the island and all that stuff, they've always been playing with this whole thing that nobody knows who Rey is. Right. But he does. He's the only one that can understand who she is, and she's the only one who can fully understand him. And I thought they were really clear in the trailer about that too, where she was like, nobody understands me, no one knows who I am. Mm-hmm. And then the trailer cuts to him coming out of the water, and he's like, I understand you, and he like comes out, and then they have that battle. And I was just like, oh, this is gonna be epic. And I couldn't believe that scene was actually better in the movie than in the trailer. That fight scene was so good. The fact that they both just kind of give up, because they're both like, why are we even fighting? Like, they just like, they don't even understand why they're fighting, and they kind of just both are tired and done. Like, I felt so much of that. That was awesome.
But I also what I liked about that fight too was just showing how much there was so much raw emotion to that. So at some point it became like less about like real Jedi lightsaber wielding technique and just more about like just pure energy just soaring through them and needing to release in some way, and they just ended up releasing it like in conflict with each other. And then seeing his reaction when Leia died was like, I know,
he's feeling it. Was so emotional.
He's feeling it.
So that's another one of my things I really enjoyed about this. So one thing, I liked the lightsaber battles all throughout this movie. I thought they were all really good. They had a perfect blend of the emotional drama from the original trilogy, but the flips and cool actiony stuff from the prequel trilogy. So they actually had a really good mix. And I saw online somebody was comparing that battle in the water with the ocean waves. They were comparing that to the Anakin Obi-Wan fight with the lava, and they were talking about how there's a lot of similarities between the two. And I was like, oh, weird, I never even noticed that. But there's all this emotion thrown into it. So but one thing, just segueing off what you just talked about, one thing I really liked about this movie is how many scenes of Princess Leia we got. With that was insane. How much of
quite a bit of footage, like
Carrie Fisher, that we got in this movie. Like, I know that they had to like puzzle it all together to make it work. But man, it just seemed flawless. It seemed realistic. Like they had like a full movie with her in it. That was great. So
I think some of the lines delivered were a little bit awkward, but I don't think like you can't really do much about that.
You can't
like,
ask
I wouldn't dock them for that at all.
Great.
No. Yeah. And that like when you go with that kind of excuse me, when you go with that kind of decision, like you are going for like a pretty risky move. But
for sure,
I think in terms of what they went for and the resources they had, I think it was a good job as well. Yeah.
And like another thing too that I didn't know I wanted at all, I wouldn't have thought I wanted until I saw it, was seeing Luke and Leia young with CGI. I was like, this is really good. Like that was handled very well, I thought. Leia looked a little off, but that's okay.
You know what?
Luke
actually
looked insane.
That's right.
He looked exactly like Luke.
When we saw Leia, I actually saw more. It is her daughter, right? What's Carrie Fisher's daughter?
Oh, was she the stand-in?
Well, it looked like it. Because isn't she like she's also in Star Wars, isn't she? Her daughter.
Oh, she might be. I'm not sure.
Carrie Fisher's daughter. She told because she's the one that actually she does her hair in like the buns. I think she does that for all of the movies, or she always has her hair in some sort of way.
I recognize. I can already think of who that is. Yeah.
So, anyways, she's in it, and when they showed young Leia, I actually really saw her daughter's face, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they used her as a stand-in and then did the whole...
That makes sense.
I mean, they could have.
I could see that.
When does that exactly take place? They didn't say, right?
No, but it would have been after Empire, because she got her training once, or from Luke, after Empire Strikes Back.
But is that something that's also mentioned in the movies, that she did get training from Luke?
Yeah. Okay. Who says it? I can't remember who says it. It might be Luke. Or no, it might be that Maz Kanata chick. I can't remember. Somebody says it, and they're talking to them, and they're explaining what happened about how Leia... No, it's got to be Luke. Because Luke gives her the lightsaber, so I'm sure it was Luke, and he explains that...
no, sorry, I don't mean in this movie. I mean prior to this movie. Have they mentioned?
No, that's all new.
Okay.
I mean, the books in the old day, when the books were canon, they went through all that. But the books got taken out of the canon with Disney, so this is a new thing.
I just I was at my friend's place the other day for a birthday, and he has a whole bunch of legacy. What are they called?
Aftermath and.
I think they're called like the Legacy series or the Legacy Force series or something.
Oh, sorry.
And whatever they're called, but he said now they're called like Star Wars Legends because it's not canon. But that makes me want to read it even more, just because they're called Legends. That's just great marketing.
Yeah, I know it's such a shame that we don't have those. It's so awesome that we still have Clone Wars, but let's wait until the day when Disney eventually cuts it out and it's not canon anymore.
Yeah.
I could see them doing that with the new Obi-Wan TV series or movie or whatever it is that comes out.
Yeah.
Eventually, when that does come out, I could see them having to rearrange Clone Wars a little bit there and them doing their own thing, or maybe Rebels. I'm not sure, but I feel like they're going to be retelling some of the same stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So more things I liked. Han, I felt like Han was handled a lot better in this movie than he was in Force Awakens. He was a lot less of like he's a lot less of just like a deadbeat father who kind of just like left his son and didn't want to help him out anymore, and he was a lot more of like an emotional father, and also the younger Han that we knew. He seemed way
Right.
more realistic in this movie than he did in The Force Awakens. And I get why. Because in Force Awakens, he was the character telling us a lot of like how things are now.
Okay.
So they had to make him a certain way to be able to do that. But it's always frustrating when you see like a character that you wish was with Leia to be like away from her for so long, just running across the galaxy with his buddy. Like
Yeah.
it just seemed like this total story that didn't make sense to me, or it's not what I wanted to see out of him. And in this movie, he just seemed like a loving father, and that was just amazing. So I feel like they fixed Han in this movie for sure.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I really enjoyed his scene.
I like that moment as well. Just something pretty pretty simple, and I guess I would still be curious to know if was Han, was he force sensitive and that's why he was able to project himself towards Kylo, or was that all in Kylo's head? Like, what exactly?
I'm gonna
does this mean?
pretend not, but I was also confused in that scene. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And my fiance was like, "You don't understand?" She's like, "He was a memory." I was like, "No, I know they said that, but I don't understand what that means." She's like, "He's a memory," and I was like, "Oh, okay." So she gets it, but I don't get it.
Okay, and I can't help you with that because I don't get anything.
Yeah. But I liked the scene. It was emotional. And speaking about that, I found this movie overall to be genuinely emotional. There was like six great moments where I was like, "Whoa, I might cry. Like, this is good."
I think I might have teared up like 3 different times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of when they all were. I might have teared up a little bit during the C-3PO moment when he said.
That's the first one that almost got me.
Okay.
I was shocked it got me, but it did. When he was saying it, I was like, "Whoa, this is harsh."
Yeah. It's interesting because he's saying, what does he say? I'm taking a look at my friends one last time.
Yeah.
Or I'm taking one last look at my friends or something. But
Yeah.
I found it funny, somebody else mentioned it in their review that C-3PO is with
The new friends.
he's
not
with the
old
new
friends.
exactly, yeah, the new friends, which he hasn't really known for that long.
And they all seem so angry around him too.
Yeah, exactly. Like they all just. I mean, it's kind of always like that with C-3PO, other than maybe like
For sure.
Leia. But I think
guess it's a
everybody always
love-hate
kind of treats them like
relationship.
trash.
Yeah.
But
It would have made more sense if Leia was with them.
Yeah.
'Cause, like he's known her for so long.
Yeah, but I think counter to that statement, I think it's interesting for him to say that because, you know, we did talk about this in our last time we talked about it, that each of the characters are pretty much like the new generation versions of the old crew, right? So I almost feel like C-3PO looking at them and saying,
Sees
looking
his
at
old
my
friends?
Yeah, he's actually
Yeah.
picturing his old friends because they are embodying the spirit of all those characters.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that was the intent for the beginning was to have.
Or
that
they're just
crew.
trying to pull your heartstrings with an emotional line.
Oh no, I mean like,
But it
I
worked.
mean the intent with that crew being like the new embodiment of the old crew.
Oh yes,
But,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, so for that I kind of liked it, and it was cool that C-3PO got some sort of moment to do something like much more impactful than normal, I guess. I mean, I think
Definitely, he was like a larger part of this whole thing, which is interesting. He had a good line, or he had lots of good lines throughout the whole movie, and he had a bigger part, which is interesting. It was good to see.
Yeah, like normally it's R2-D2. I think people might take notice of having more impact, like when he like he's got the map to Luke. And
he saves the day a lot with gadgets and gizmos and stuff.
Yeah, like people wouldn't expect. I think because he seems like the more underrated character, but they make him so not overrated, but they make him like just like really really useful.
Yeah.
Like what was it in episode? I feel like it was in episode 2, where they're on. I think they're on one of the like Imperial starships or whatever, and then there's those like big bulky looking droids where they're
the battle droid, the silver battle droid.
Yeah. So like there's 2 of them that are trying to apprehend R2-D2, and then he like leaks fluid on them, and then he turns on,
lights
his,
it on
his
fire.
rockets, and I'm like, wow, that's
That's Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, that's actually at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith.
Oh,
that's
so
Anakin
episode
and
3.
Obi-Wan going to Grievous's
that's
ship
right
or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
General Grievous. Yes. Yeah, 3PO is definitely very good. And one other thing, this is a random note I've got for this whole thing, is the ending. When we were getting near the ending and we've got Rey and Palpatine, and Palpatine's just like, strike me down.
Yeah.
And then she's got like the lightsaber, and like I'm looking at this and like she's got this moment where she's got this really easy task she needs to do, but it has such harsh consequences that she can't do it.
Yeah.
And she's being persuaded and all this kind of stuff. And then her friends were watching Poe, and he's looking around and he's like seeing people die around him and all. He's getting all emotional. Everything's starting to slow down to get to this really interesting moment.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't seen something like this since Lord of the Rings. It was very Lord of the Rings-esque for me. It was so much like Frodo with the ring going into Mount Doom, and then you got Aragorn, and he's fighting, and he's looking over, and his friends are getting hurt, and Legolas is looking back, like, are we going to make it, you know? And it's like, it was a very similar moment, and it's nowhere near as good as Lord of the Rings, but it was similar.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt like that in a long time, so that was really good to even get close to evoking that same emotion out of me. And I was like, whoa, cool. I just kind of wish it was like, there was more to it. Like it was with Frodo, he just has to throw a ring in a fire, but there's so much more to it than that that it makes it really emotional. But anyways, with her and striking him down, I was just more like, oh, what's going to happen next than I was like, this is so tough. But still, regardless, that was a really good moment. I really enjoyed that ending moment. It's just I felt like there was a lot of stakes. It's interesting.
Yeah, there are also a lot of voices.
Oh yes,
Jedi
right.
voices,
Yeah, I forgot all about that. All the Jedi voices. Yeah, we got like I didn't hear all the ones that were there. I saw online afterwards all the names that were in there, but I definitely heard Hayden Christensen, and I was like, they brought him back. I was like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
And I heard Mace Windu. I definitely heard Samuel Jackson and Yoda and all that, but I didn't hear Qui-Gon Jinn was apparently in there.
Yep. He had a pretty long phrase actually. That's why I was able to figure out his voice.
Well, maybe I heard it but didn't realize it was him.
You might have thought it was
Obi-Wan or something,
like older Obi-Wan, maybe.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I definitely heard Ewan McGregor as well.
Yeah, could hear that. The ones that I was surprised about, which I didn't realize until after, was Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, yeah,
Which
I know. I was
I'm
shocked.
like,
I didn't know
really
she was
cool.
in there.
Yeah.
Like way to finally put that canon in there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Like,
that's very cool. And,
I would definitely see an Ahsoka movie. That'd be cool.
Yeah. And Kanan. So you might not be familiar with him, but he's from Rebels.
Right.
So he's voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So his voice was in it as well, I believe. And I think it's really cool that they would cross the CGI universe into the. I mean, it's all the same universe, but cross the CGI stuff into.
It's kind of one of the first times acknowledging it. Well, that's not true. I mean, they've put in actors like Saul Guerrero or whatever was in Rebel One.
Well, he was in Rogue One. Yeah.
And he was like a character from the other show and all that stuff. Like, I guess they have actually acknowledged it, but this was just nice to see as well. Especially Ahsoka. I don't know. I was just stoked to hear that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or stoked to hear that she was in it. I didn't know this one.
I'm a stoked for Ahsoka.
Stoked. My last thing I'll say about my last good thing I can say about it.
So we're just doing like this whole good section, and then the rest, like the half of this episode, will just be.
That's
like,
what I mean. Like, there's a lot of good stuff to talk about it. And I really want to talk about all the good stuff, just because I want to balance it out.
Okay.
But
balance the force.
My last good thing I can say about it is this sequel trilogy in general, but also this movie is where we got to see it a lot. Is the main characters in this movie have really good chemistry. So, and I've kind of built this little circle of chemistry in these movies. So Kylo Ren and Rey have really good chemistry. They work very well on screen together.
Yeah.
Then Rey and Finn have really good chemistry. When they're on screen together, they have awesome lines, and they it can get oddly emotional when you don't expect it to.
Yeah.
You know that one scene where she was like trying to put something away, and then he's like trying to get something out of her, and then she was like, "Oh, you don't understand who I am. You don't know anything about me," or something like that. And he's like, "No," because he tries to say like, "I know you," and she's like, "You don't know me." And I just realized in that moment, I was like, "God, their chemistry is really good. Their acting's really good." And it reminds me of like The Force Awakens when they're running around the ship trying to figure each other out, and they're like trying to fly the Millennium Falcon for the first time, and they're just like, I don't know, good chemistry there. So, anyways, then Finn and Po have really good chemistry.
Finn
obviously.
Po.
The lines are hilarious, and like they're just so good on screen together. You can just see that screenshot of them playing Chewbacca into chess, and you can see so much from just their faces when it first cuts on them. You're just laughing already. You know, it's like so funny.
Yeah.
So they're good, and then this is my theory to make it full circle. Is I think that Poe and Kylo Ren have good chemistry. Now I know we only saw it like once, but in the first movie, when Poe is captured. Or he's going to get captured, I guess, and Kylo Ren's like, you know, he's like trying to intimidate him, and then like Poe is just like, "Who talks first? Do you talk first?
Yeah.
I talk first?" You know, and then like Kylo Ren's all like angry and mad. Like I don't know, they had this really good like moment between them. So I think a full circle of chemistry. We've got all these really good actors that can all talk really well with each other. So I think J.J. Abrams knows that. I mean, he also was the director of the first one, so he definitely knows it. But coming back to this movie, he definitely threw it all in for this movie to make sure that we got the right people together in the right scenes to get good chemistry, and we got to see good acting because of that. Yeah. Except The Last Jedi didn't do it all. They split up everyone. But this movie put everyone together, and I think that's why it was good, is because everyone was playing off each other really, really well. So that worked, and I just wanted more. It was very good.
Yeah. Side note, I just remembered that during that last scene where Lando comes back with like every single rebellion possible or rebel possible, that there's actually one ship that is from Star Wars Rebels. It's called the Ghost. So I'm not sure if that's meant to say anything in terms of like is anybody from the same crew? It's hard to say because it takes place like at a completely different time. But little Easter egg there. So the Ghost was in there. And one thing from the beginning of the movie, what I liked was that we started off with something like high energy. So we started off with like the Millennium Falcon chase, basically, right? Like going through that little
with the light speed jumps.
Yeah, with all the light, like that was so cool. All those light speed jumps. I mean, like, well, I thought it was just like for me, it was like a fun, like a different fun way to just incorporate some sort of chase. Because like before, so the last time we saw anything to do with like light speed chasing was in The Last Jedi when they were able to track them through light speed, right? And so it would usually just it was kind of like a very slow version of it, because like Rebellion would light speed away, and then however many moments later, then they would show up. But for this one, it was kind of like zip, 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 and I thought, hey, that's kind of cool, like a different way to portray it. And
kind of like this movie.
Well,
that scene I think embodies this whole movie. It was very much like zip, 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 and like
that's okay. It's good foreshadowing.
Not taking any time.
It's foreshadowing.
So without further ado, let's move into things we didn't enjoy about this movie. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'm sure there's something you didn't enjoy about this movie.
I'm sure there are. I just have to think about them. What did I not... Oh, I think... Okay, so what I wanted to clarify, I guess, like maybe we have to just go with like our best guess, but I would have liked to have understood better what was happening in that whole like Sith stadium thing when Rey finally confronted Palpatine, and there's just a whole bunch of people just like cheering, like who are they and where did they come from? So I feel like anything that came, almost anything that arrived because of Sidious is kind of like what I'm questioning and what I'm...
The gigantic what is it? I don't understand. What's happening?
Yeah, like the whole army that just has been dormant this whole time. Like all those Star Destroyers that...
The crew?
That yeah, exactly. Like were they personed this whole time? Like were there people living on it?
I know. Are they just magic? I don't understand.
And yeah, like it's so hard to figure out. And when we first saw Sidious's face, and it's all like old and pale and stuff, I was dreading that this was going to be some sort of like zombie movie. Because if they made it like a Star Wars space / zombie movie, like I'm sure I would have been upset. It didn't go that way, so that's okay. But yeah, maybe the whole last scene, the whole last climax, like with Rey and Kylo facing off with the Emperor, that whole scene I feel was probably the most rushed thing out of the whole movie. But it's the things, and maybe because it's so rushed is what's leaving me with so many questions, because I kind of feel like so there was a point towards the beginning where Rey was trying to connect with all of the past Jedi or past Jedi Masters, right? And wasn't able to. And I didn't find that there was enough leading up to her being able to finally reach them in the end. Like, I guess it was more so about them reaching out to her, but I feel like there should have been a little bit more leading up to that connection being available to her,
right?
And then with him like shooting them with his Force lightning and then all of a sudden absorbing it, like that's that's a completely new thing, right? Like we haven't seen anything similar to that other than the force healing, but this is kind of like a dark force healing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was weird. Yeah.
So that was kind of weird to me. Yeah, it's things like that. Like I wish there could have been a few more precursors, because then I can say like, okay, this is justified. Like I agree that as like him being the big final boss, like he should have some surprises, but I feel like they should still.
We need to have those explained to us before we see them. So
not everything.
How it's happening.
Yeah. We should not with everything though, but with something that is similar enough to elements that we've already seen, then I feel like it should be explained. But if they're just completely out of the blue nowhere, then it makes sense that they're not explained, they're not justified, just because like we just didn't know. Like we had no reason to know.
But there should also be payoff afterwards, where we understand what it is. If we're never told what it is, then we don't know, and then it's only put there for shock value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's a few things. I'm sure more will come to mind, but
right. Yeah. I'll mention some, and then you can tell me what you think about them, because I might be this might just be me, but you can see if you agree or disagree. Yeah, my biggest one, you've already touched on it, is Palpatine. Like, I love Palpatine as a character. We've made fun of him so much since we started this podcast.
Yeah.
And I love him as a character. I was honestly really excited that he was back, but my biggest thing was, why is he back? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But don't worry, because the movie will explain it to you. Well, I watched the whole movie, and I have no idea why Palpatine is back.
Yeah.
I don't know why, because the title crawl just told me that Palpatine is back. It just went, oh, he's back. Like, it literally says, like, Emperor Palpatine is back. Like, I was like, wait, what? Like, it's almost like J.J. Abrams expected us to have watched the trailer and then watched the movie, which I know most of us did. But he's like, the credits roll could have been like, since you've now watched the trailer, you understand that Emperor Palpatine is back. Oh no! And then like continued on. Like, I was like, what is going on? Like, I was like, okay, so then I just assumed we would get more explanation, but not really. It's so vague, and I understand it's vague to like create this sense of supernatural, but I'm a person who wants to know. I want to know why it's happening. I want to understand more about it. So that was frustrating for me. Very, very frustrating. But my biggest thing is I was also very confused with how any of that worked. I don't know how those Empire ships came about. There was also like some red stormtroopers in there too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I don't know who those people are, because I'm assuming that's his army, because they were on the ships. And I got this from Red Letter Media, actually. I was just watching their review on this, and they mentioned this one as well. And it was a very good question they have, because the red soldiers on the ship are from Palpatine's army, which we're assuming were just conjured by his force powers.
Okay.
But the red soldiers are modeled after the First Order soldiers.
Yeah. So
they look like the First Order soldiers, but the ships look like the old classic Imperial ships or Empire ships. So it's like he almost has to pick a lane, right? Is he creating these things from way back in the day, so they're old ships, or is he creating these old ships but creating new people based on the new First Order? So like it was just a mismatch. It was kind of like somebody just built a war generator online and just plugged in a bunch of ships.
Well, yeah,
plugged in a bunch of army for the sake of making a big battle. You know, like
I don't think Sidious or Palpatine, or whatever we want to call him from this point on.
Yeah, I just assume it's Palpatine.
Palpius.
Palpius.
I don't think he took any kind of like creative course, so like he probably just uses whatever template he remembers from the first time
he got the stock template from the software. He just took their stock template and threw it all in there.
stock_sith dot template. I think it's
Control-C, Death Star, Control-V.
I think it's okay that that whatever he had this time was modeled after whatever from the First Order, and I mean it's basically modeled after stuff from this sequel, this trilogy, and the
original trilogy.
And the original trilogy, yeah.
Yeah, the ships themselves were the original trilogy Star Destroyer ships. They just had a planet destroyer weapon on them.
Yeah.
For some reason. But then the soldiers were First Order soldiers with red.
Right.
Probably to make a new action figure, I assume, but I don't know.
I guess like I don't mind that a lot of those are similar, only because I find that like I almost think it'd be really weird if we get like it's the same Sidious just a little bit later in life. So I feel like it would be really weird for him like it would be really weird for him to just conjure up something that is just completely new in design and look and everything.
Right.
But this is also despite the fact that he incubates a bunch of random Snoke bodies.
He's got a vat of Snoke somewhere.
Yeah. So I think that's, for me, that's like the big WTF. Like, whoa,
I know.
That's like the biggest Snoke write-off.
He says,
If
like,
anything,
yeah, I know. He's
like,
like, I've been pulling
yeah.
the strings from behind the scenes for so long now. So the whole point was to have him and Kylo, and Rey, like, kill Snoke? That was part of Palpatine's plan? That's what it sounded like he was saying. Because he's like, I've been creating your connection for this long, you know?
Yeah.
But then he's also tricked when they use their connection for his advantage, or against him, you know, later on. Like, he doesn't understand their connection later on. Like, but I took it as in he was saying he creates their bond, their connection, every time they do it. But I guess that's not what he's saying. He just means that he's the one who put them together to be close.
I think, yeah. I think because we've seen... Okay, like, if what we've seen based on The Last Jedi, when Kylo Ren kills Snoke, and if this whole time that Sidious has been controlling Snoke and puppeteering him, then I feel like the Force still has some sort of limitations in what it can sense from others. So Snoke was able to sense that Kylo was like wielding the lightsaber, he was turning it on, and he was striking, which he did, but Snoke was just unable, or Snoke/Sidious now was unable to see in which direction Kylo was using this energy towards, right? Instead of using it towards Rey, use it towards Snoke. So I feel with this one, at least with Sidious, for him to see their bond and be surprised by it, I feel like that's only because that is the limitation. Even though he's the darkest and most powerful Sith Lord ever, but the Force is still some other entity that can't be conquered by any one being. Like, because the Force is kind of like, it's within everybody, right? Or it's within all living things. It's kind of like a shared thing, but it's not consumed by any one being. It's not controlled wholly by any one being. So for me, that at least justifies why Sidious was unable to predict that kind of connection that the Rey and Kylo will build up, that would ultimately be his, I guess, demise. Yeah, that's kind of like the best way that I can justify it, but I kind of feel that way anyway. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Palpatine in general, I found him disappointing only because I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand more. And and again, so let me get to the biggest thing that I think this movie had as its issue. And the biggest issue, I think, is that clearly, when watching it, for me, this is clear, is that this was two movies, not one. I think it was very similar to when I watched Aquaman. When I saw Aquaman, I saw three movies in one. There was like a whole trilogy in that one movie. And this movie here felt very similar to that, but almost in a sad way, because I really liked the content I was getting. Aquaman I didn't enjoy at all, but this one I was actually enjoying. And it was sad because I was like, the moment when he says he's like, search your feelings, you know it to be true, Palpatine, you know, he is your grandfather, you're his granddaughter. And then she's like, oh, and then she kind of like does that like questionable thing and then jumps off the thing, and then the Falcon picks her up and all that. I was like, this is the ending to the second movie. Like, this is clearly that was all in contrast to The Empire Strikes Back. I was like, that's it was all paying homage. And I was like, this is definitely the second movie right here. So pretty much J.J. Abrams successfully just retconned Last Jedi and made his own second movie. The problem is if that movie was actually put in, we would have had much better pacing, because the pacing in this movie is all over the place. It's so quick that we don't really get any time to breathe. We go to like 12 planets or something crazy. Like, I saw the set in the end and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many different locations we go to in this movie, because they're jumping us around. Like, do you remember the planet with like the snow and like the World War II motifs and stuff, and like people asking for identification and all that? That whole planet is like 6 minutes long. Like, it's really barely anything.
Oh, that's where they get the that medallion that gets them onto like any kind of
the secret medallion that gets them onto any ship they want to get onto. It's pretty. That's also just because like they need to rush through the script so much that they have to give these characters items like that are kind of video gamey, because they need to be able to get these characters from point A to point Z really quickly, right? So they like, here's a medallion that'll just get you through all those checkpoints real quick. If it was a regular movie, they wouldn't have the medallion and they'd have to find a tricky way to get onto the ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting seeing that, because that planet was really cool. The snow coming down and the soldiers, it was very World War II-esque. It was very like Nazi soldiers coming to the door, knocking on the doors, asking for papers. It was really cool. I love it when Star Wars does like war motifs. But it was like 2 seconds. You know, they're just like, they're in there, they get the thing, then they're gone. And like, it's like, okay. It's like, I really wish they spent some time there. That would have been kind of cool. But no, we're gone now. Now we got to get to the Star Destroyer thing, and we got to get inside there. And then, okay, well, how are they going to get in the Star Destroyer? Oh, we'll just use the medallion. We'll fly in, we'll land, we'll just shoot everyone, and we'll just run through, get the thing, and go. And it's like, okay, hold on, sit for a second, think about stuff. Because I mean, and this is being contrasted everywhere, but that scene in episode 4, I guess, when like Luke and Han and Leia and all that, they get into, no, just Luke and Han and Chewie, they get to the Star Destroyer and they land in it. You know, they go through a whole song and dance to be able to disguise themselves, so then eventually
that's right,
don their outfits to bring Chewie into the thing, to get to the center console. They pretend that their intercoms are broken. They do the whole thing. And it's a long scene, and it's a good scene because you understand all the characters with every action they do. But no, in this movie, it's just get out of the ship and shoot everyone. The only scene that had any emotion was when Rey does her force powers to those two guys. Those random 2 stormtroopers, she does force powers for a second. Like, she just remembered she had force powers. And she's just like, you don't care that we're here or whatever. And they're like, we don't care you're here. We're glad you're here, you know? And it was funny. The whole audience laughed. They loved it. And then it immediately cuts back to just shooting again. And we're all just sitting there watching it, like, when is the shooting over, you know? Like, it's weird. But, I mean, that being said, to say another good thing, in the shooting, and this came out afterwards, my fiance and I were talking about it, and she's like, she's like, I remember hearing that the stormtroopers can never aim. She's like, so I was watching them and they always missed. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Yeah. And then I was like, but I noticed the heroes missed in this one. I was like, I noticed that Finn had shot a few times and he had missed. And then she's like, oh, but he was a stormtrooper. And I was like, oh my god, that's good call. Like, so I don't know if that was intentional or what, but I noticed that he always missed on his like first shot and got on his second one. So I think that maybe they were doing that on purpose, but I have no idea. But still, that was kind of cool.
Was he not running during that time?
He was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
he would
kind of
miss his shot and then he'd get one.
That. I might have been thinking that exact same thing. I think during that scene, funny. I was like, "Oh, the stormtroopers are always missing. The heroes never miss." And I'm like, "Oh wait, why is he missing? That's weird."
I know that it was weird because I noticed they intentionally made him miss a few times, but yeah. I have no idea if that was intentional or what, but I noticed that. But anyways, those scenes, unfortunately, to me, had no stakes, had no value of just them running. I just felt nothing. But then that small 2-second scene of her actually taking some time using a force power, I was like, oh cool, like you got something there, something you can have, and you're like, yes. And then but you got no time. Oh look, it's Lando. Like, let's move the scene, like let's just keep going. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, like this movie, sometimes just take your time, just chill for a second. We're on like that desert planet going to like Burning Man or something for like a second.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we're, again, if you count the minutes of like that whole scene, it's probably like 11 minutes, maybe 9 minutes. Like, it's very quick. And then we're in a battle scene, and then they're suddenly in like a cave. Like, it's so quick.
Yeah, so actually, that's true.
It's not bad. I think all the scenes are good scenes. I think it's just that if we split them up, we make 2 movies out of it, we'd have a really good trilogy here. I think like whatever episode 8 would have been with those scenes and like padded out with actual scenes, I think it would have been fantastic. But unfortunately we didn't get it, and I think J.J.Abrams knows that too, but he can't say it, you know. I think most of Disney thinks that Rian Johnson did what they weren't expecting, and they wanted to fix it with J.J.Abrams' movie. I think most of Disney thinks that, but they just can't say it. I think that's what it is. And I don't even think Rian Johnson's all that terrible. His movie wasn't great, but it had some good things, and it was trying to say something, which was cool. But it's a shame that that's what happened with The Rise of Skywalker, is that the editing and the pacing was just crazy. And like, I don't know, I can't sit and watch a movie like that because it's just so stimulating, but it makes no sense. So it's hard.
I think that could be the same reason why watching the movie I never felt well, not that I never felt relaxed, but I always felt gripped by something. So that explains why.
It's very twitchy. It's super like reactionary and twitchy. It's like a Call of Duty game. Like, you don't have any seconds to breathe. You know, you take Lord of the Rings. A lot of people say Lord of the Rings is just walking, and they say all of those movies are just walking. But you know what? Walking gives you time to think, and that's what you should be doing as an audience member is sitting down and thinking in the scenes, thinking out all the stuff going on. But if you find yourself not being able to actually think because everything that's happening is going by way too quickly, then there might be a reason for that. And the reason it's going by too quickly, I think, is because they knew that their story wasn't really making much sense. So they were thinking, if we just do it really quickly, nobody will pay attention, even though it's going to get picked to shreds anyways. But in the theater, at least, no one's going to really be able to have enough time to think and then think it's a bad movie. So they're going to come out of the theater thinking all that nostalgia was great. The acting was great. The emotion was great. And I just feel great. It was an awesome movie. And I think that worked. I think generally that worked. But if you really sit down and you think about the movie and you go through the scenes, there's a better scene out there. There's a better version of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of fan cut or extended version of this that is better because it takes more time to tell the story.
Yeah, what would they call it?
The Ultimate Edition. No, the J.J.Abrams trilogy.
The Rise of Skypatine.
I think the second movie could be called The Last Jedi still, and I think it could just be recut but with J.J. Abrams stuff. And Rey would be technically the Last Jedi. She'd be the Palpatine, but she'd be the Last Jedi. I think that's how they would have cut it. I think you could probably cut Last Jedi, cut it up and take some of those scenes, throw it with some of the scenes of Rise of Skywalker, and create the real Last Jedi movie. And then you could take some of Rise of Skywalker and make that last third movie. I think it could be done, but you might need some kind of extra footage from what they filmed to be able to create it so it's really consistent.
Yeah,
but still. There is a second and third movie out of that third movie somewhere in there.
So we have movie 1, we have movie 2, we have movie 2.2, and 3A, 3B. Yeah. Yes.
So, I mean, I've got a lot of complaints,
3PO.
but most of them stem back to that. Most of them are just because it was rushed. It's not necessarily the worst complaint, That's why I came out of it pleasantly surprised. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought. I actually went into the theater. I was telling my fiance, I was like, I know what they're going to do. I thought Finn and Po were going to be a gay couple. And I was like, I thought they were going to ship them. Yeah. And so I told her that. And I was like, I'm going to hate this movie. And I'm pretty sure they're going to do that. And I was like so upset. And then we saw the movie. And I came out and I was like ashamed of myself. I was like, I can't believe I thought they were going to do that.
Be.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe I didn't trust Disney. Like, I actually thought they were going to screw it up. And they were going to make me so frustrated with the movie. And I came out and I was like, oh, it was actually a great movie. Like, it was really well done. And I was like, cool. That being said, the two shoehorned characters, the love interests, they did not need to be there. The one chick is literally there just to give Poe a medallion so that he can get through the rest of the movie. Oh, yeah, right. And the other chick is just there so they can have sort of an Ewok motif of, like, a nature versus, like, imperialism or, like, because, like, she's riding on the horses and they're all, like, horse rider, like, savage kind of like, characters, almost similar to, like, Ewoks that are fighting against, like, machinery and all that, right? So I feel like that's the only reason why they wanted to introduce that kind of thing. But maybe they also just wanted to make it so Finn had a love interest that wasn't Rey. But they also had Rose, and I'm not saying Rose was the best character, but I'm just saying it's weird that they gave him another love interest, even though they still had Rose.
Yeah, that
felt so awkward.
There's a lot of weird stuff with that going on. I feel like that just has to do with fan hate kind of thing.
I get it, but it's like they could have still done something with Rose. They didn't have to like throw her aside. And then like even though they threw her aside, they even made it so she got shut down. She's even like, Finn, what's going on? He's just like, not now, Rose. It's like, whoa. Yeah. So you don't gotta be mean to her. Like, I think everyone universally felt that way. They were like, I mean, I understand we don't necessarily like Rose in Rian Johnson's movie, but I don't blame Rose at all. I just blame the movie, I just, like, you can make any character better. You just write it better.
So okay, I want to go back to the whole horse riding thing. Could the horses and the people breathe? Like they're in space, aren't they? Or is this like?
Don't question it. Lando's coming with a bunch of ships. Don't even pay attention. Just here. Look at this Lando.
Okay.
Remember Maz Kanata? Remember the slave ship? Remember Mandalorian?
I was just trying to figure out, like, were they just like? I thought that they were really high up in the atmosphere, but I guess it turns out maybe they were still within, like, Endor's atmosphere, and then
no, they were breathing in space.
Okay. My other justification would have been that they were under the shield of each shoot, what are they called? Not Death Star. Why am I losing it?
Star Destroyer?
Star Destroyer, yeah. They were under the shield of each Star Destroyer, and there's oxygen within the shield. I don't know. They were probably just within the atmosphere. So one more thing that I want to mention that I liked, and it's more so about the overall storytelling, and it's kind of speaking to the whole sequel trilogy as opposed to just this movie. But it's about when when Kylo kept saying, let go of the past, let it die, all that kind of stuff, because that was kind of like a recurring theme for him throughout the whole sequel series,
and also his redemption.
And well, yeah, actually that's true. What I took from it, originally what I took from it ended up changing by the end of this movie, but originally what I took from it was anything that's been happening throughout the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, that stuff that's in the past, and whatever's happening now, we're just going to we're starting fresh. Whatever happens now has nothing to do with like the past. So to me, that's kind of like how the theme was starting to shape based on whenever he was saying it. But then I realized by the end of this movie that because this movie, like you said, was pretty much like a trilogy on its own, at least it was like episode 2 and 3, that it still in and of itself was a rehash of several Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And so they
kept falling into the same roles. Regardless of what they try to change in life, they end up falling into the same patterns as the people before them.
Yeah, exactly. And so because of that, I to an extent I agree with people saying that this movie was basically like a rehash of Return of the Jedi, and
but it's got a lot of Empire Strikes Back in there too.
Well, yeah, exactly. It has a lot of elements of other stuff too. It's not just that rehash of that. But I think people complaining about it being just a rehash overall, like what movies today aren't a rehash of something else? Like
the Rocky movies are great, or the Creed movies, are great, and they're literally just rehashes of Rocky.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're done so well.
So it's not just like, I don't think it being a rehash is a critique. It's just a fact, and that's what it is. But what I gathered, or what I took of the whole let go of the past thing at the end of this, was almost kind of like a slap in the face to the audience, to like the people who want this Star Wars to be completely different. It's almost that's like true. Wait, sorry, this is Rian Johnson, right, for this movie?
No, this one's J.J.Abrams.
Sorry. So it's almost like J.J.Abrams saying like, oh, this is what you wanted? You wanted to let go of the past? Well, too bad, because that's not what this movie is about. That's not what these characters are about. That's not what the story's about.
Yeah.
Like, this is just about these characters doing their thing based on what they know, based on how they've been brought up. These are their foundations. They can't let go of that. Otherwise, they're not who they are. Like, that wouldn't make sense. Yeah. So I almost took the whole theme of let go of the past just being like a big recurring joke throughout the whole trilogy. Even though before watching this movie, it was like a serious thing. I was like, oh, this is what's going to happen. They're cutting off everything. But no, they're really just showing literally everything. And they're just keeping everything within it. And I was totally fine with that, because I still enjoyed... I enjoyed the elements that Star Wars is built upon. Yeah. And I enjoy seeing it still existing later on with characters later on. Because if not, then I have a different kind of connection to those characters. And I'd want to see a completely different story. But because these are taking place after the events of the same war that they're like the previous generation characters that they're embodying have gone through, that means that stuff is not over. There's still things left to touch upon and things to close. Like I kind of felt like this movie was a good kind of closure for the things that we have been seeing recurring through all these movies. So yeah, for that, like I'm happy with how that went anyway.
And I'll agree with you there. I mean, and that's perfect segue. It goes full circle to what I said at the very beginning of the podcast too. I'll agree with you there. The ending was good. I like this ending, and it did feel like at least some kind of closure, similar to Infinity War, or no, Endgame, where they did some kind of closure for an ending. I believe that this one was good. That being said, though, I did want to mention that Rian Johnson at the end of The Last Jedi, there is a really good ending with that too, where Luke Skywalker dies, but the legend of Luke Skywalker lives on and into the hearts of children. So at the very end, there's the child, and the child's got a little action figure of like Luke fighting like the big bad guy, you know. And then even he has this whimsical dream of one day leaving the planet he's on to then go off on a crazy star adventure, you know. And I think that's also such a good ending for the whole thing. I think if somehow that could have tied up the ending to the whole series, that would have been amazing. Like, it doesn't really make any sense to how this series ended. But if there was almost an ending where someone asked Rey if she knew Luke Skywalker, you know, and she was like, oh, like, and she like, and like maybe the kid didn't like think she did or something like that, and she explains that she knew Luke and she fought with Luke in some kind of war or something like that, and then the kid has this whimsical dream of like what they could also be like, looking up at the stars and like how they could eventually leave this planet. It's just some kind of relatable story that we all get.
Yeah.
That being said, I do like how Rey had her own little ending there. It's a little bit shoehorned. I mean, I don't understand how the Skywalker, my fiance got mad at me for this, but I don't understand how the Skywalker residence is around. Like, I don't understand how it's like perfectly intact when it was like destroyed in the 4th movie. And then like she comes back and it's like totally pristine and back to normal. Like, remember this? It's like, oh my
I think
God.
it's not like somebody must have cleaned it up, but
It
wasn't like the whole like not the exterior resolved.
Garbage dump, and like it's just somebody comes and rebuilds it. Like, I don't know. I guess so.
Maybe it was one of the I was gonna say one of the Jawas. Maybe one of the Tusken Raiders wanted to settle down and find a new home that was just away from all the other nasty Tusken Raiders.
Well, I mean, I know she knows Luke and Leia, so her heart obviously goes back to them, and she can't go to Leia's planet because Leia's planet was blown up, so she goes to Luke's. But at the same time, if she's becoming a Skywalker and it's supposed to be the end of all things, now I know it's more emotional for the audience for her to be at Luke's house. Sure, that definitely is more nostalgic and more emotional. Yeah. But wouldn't it make more sense if she's at Anakin's house?
Or Palpatine's house.
Well, I guess, but she does take on Skywalker. I mean, it's all about identity. Yeah, you're right, though. But it would make more sense. I mean, I don't like Annie's hut at all, and it wouldn't be emotional for the audience, but that would make more sense for Rey. And that's kind of where like all the decisions in this movie are made for the audience's expense, not for the characters in the movie's expense. Yeah. It's like, what's going to be the most emotional hitting for the audience watching it, and not the most emotional hitting for the characters within this own movie. But that's one of those ones where I'm just like, I don't know. She's taking on the Skywalker name. It just seems weird that she goes to Luke's house.
She should have just gone back to Jakku and then gone to that Star Destroyer that she would raid and claim that for home. Like, imagine like come to my mansion. It's the Star Destroyer.
Yes, that would be good. Before I forget, my favorite thing overall about the sequel trilogy, and we've said it before, but my favorite thing, and especially in this movie, is the music.
I was right.
Yes. The music is so good. Oh, the Sound of Music is great.
Sound of Music is classic. Yep. It is good.
But no, like this movie was kind of like Lord of the Rings, where like everything was adapting as it's like one song that just kept going the whole time. It just kept adapting towards the different scenes. I was loving it, so I really like the music. Very good.
I don't remember, but did they? Okay, in the trailer they played the Star Wars theme, but like a slower, more kind of like epic cinematic version. Yeah. Did they play that in the movie?
I don't think so. They played like the actual Star Wars theme.
Yeah.
But they didn't play the slow dramatic trailer version, which is so good.
It's really good, right?
Oh, I love the music to this sequel trilogy.
And it's like 1.5 minutes long.
I want someone to like re-edit the old trilogy and throw in the new music because it's really good.
It's a really, oh man. Actually, there's somebody here from Vancouver. Well, I think he still lives here. His name is Samuel Kim. He's got this YouTube channel where I think for a while now he's been producing music, remixing existing ones, but also making new ones. And I think it's for the sake of kind of like scoring epic movie or scoring any kind of movie really. But he made, I think he put kind of like a tribute Star Wars music theme thing together on YouTube, and it included that slow theme. Yeah, it's really good. You should check it out. Samuel Kim Music. I'm pretty sure it's the same Samuel Kim that I know from Vancouver, but
writing it down.
But yeah, oh man, that song is like,
I love it.
It's just so good.
I know.
It's very actually no, I think I might have mentioned that. I found that this song, like that version, to me sounds like a very good final version of that song, and it's very fitting for this being like the final movie of the trilogy. So I really 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 enjoy that. I hope it's on the OST. It better be. Should be.
But you can just go on YouTube usually and get it anyways.
No, but I mean, like, yeah, if you go on YouTube right now, there's there's the one that Samuel Kim has, and there's I think there's the actual trailer, and then then there's that version where people learn to play or are trying to show like how to play piano. So they have it's in like a bird's eye view of like their fingers, and then like in DDR where they have like the arrows that are coming up to the thing. Yeah. But this is like the piano version, so like you can see the notes coming towards the fingers. And like how long
I
they are
actually
and stuff like that.
that's how I play piano a lot of times. That's how I learned some of the new songs. I use a program
Okay.
called Anth0z.
Yeah, that's what it's
And
called. Yeah.
So if you use a MIDI keyboard, then yeah, you can have it on. So at my new house, I haven't got that set up, but my plan is to get a big HD TV and put it in front of the piano, because my piano's
Whoa.
like set up separately from my computer, right?
Yeah.
So the HD TV will be above my piano, so I can do my sheet music on there. But then I could
Whoa.
also do Anth0z and have like the bars coming down and then be able to play and all that.
And they'll be like life size.
Yeah,
That's
I know.
crazy.
But otherwise,
Wow.
I could just have like backdrops or whatever while I'm playing.
Yeah.
But that would be great, because currently I'm not playing Anth0z, but earlier in my old apartment, I was always using Anth0z and had it set up to the keyboard. But that's a really good way to learn piano. I really do like it.
Cool.
But
Nice.
back to Star Wars. Closing thoughts on the movie. Yes, it was good, not great. It was nowhere near bad. This whole sequel, sequel trilogy has been pretty good in the end. Definitely better than the prequels. Nowhere near as good as the original trilogy. That's my closing on it. I give this whole series a solid 3 out of 5.
Okay. Cool. Oh, for the whole
Sorry.
series, not just this
No,
movie.
sorry. For this whole trilogy, the sequel trilogy, I give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay. What have I? The
Wah,
trilogy.
wah, wah, wah.
I'd probably be around the. I think okay. As a harsh critic, yeah, I'd say 3. But out of just somebody who just genuinely enjoys going to watch movies, like I'd probably give it a 4. I think because I guess like overall, I enjoyed watching everything take place. I enjoyed watching the characters interact with each other. I enjoyed seeing where things went. I enjoyed being surprised. I enjoyed predicting things. Yeah, I think it just, like you said, like you had fun watching this movie. I had fun watching the whole trilogy. I generally have fun watching all the Star Wars movies for whatever reason. They all have some sort of charm to them. So yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, Anth0z, do you know what time it is?
It's 8:40.
Oh, wow. Well, that's time to let people know where they can find you.
Well, if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Anth0z1. That's at ANTH0Z1.
And if you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Mattbrush Gaming. You can also watch this podcast in video form on YouTube at Mattbrush Gaming. If you'd like to listen to this podcast like regular people do out there, though, you can just listen to it on your podcast platform of choice. We got plenty of them ones out there. There's like Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, a whole bunch of them. Pretty much any podcast platform. Just type in The Scumbar Podcast, and I'm sure you'll find us on there.
The Scumbar Podcast.
The Scumbar Podcast. That's POD. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at thescumbarpodcast@gmail.com. Maybe send us an essay. Maybe send us your thoughts on Star Wars. Write us a Star Wars thesis paper, and that'd be great.
Ooh, and make it do a text crawl somehow. Program it so that we have to read it. Like we have a time limit to read it because it'll start scrolling up. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. We may read it on air if we like it. So please send it to us, and we'll let you know. But we're interested in what you guys think. Give us a like or a comment or a subscribe or whatever the things are on that podcasting platform of choice. Whatever the good stuff is, give it to us.
Give us a force.
We deserve it. Give us the force. The force is strong with this one. And let us know what you think. If you'd like to hear more about what we think about some movies or anything else out there, let us know if we're missing something. And have a good one, everybody. Welcome to 2020. We're going to start this year off right.
Cool, yeah. I was trying to relate 2020 to Star Wars, but I don't know if I can. Can you? The
I'm
Rise
not
of
sure.
2020. No.
Ooh.
The 2020 Awakens. The last 2020? It's probably the last 2020.
The last 2020? Yeah, there
it
you go.
definitely is
That's
the last
good.
2020. So.
Anth0z, I believe you wrote a poem or something for the audience. I'll let you finish with that.
When you feel the need to rise, just close your eyes. Force your way through the barrier, even though it always gets scarier. Know that you've got the power. Like Mario, use that flower. And when it's time for you to end it all, don't forget who you can call. Anth0z and Mattbrush.
Perfect. I love it. For some reason, I want to go, you got the touch!
I should have done that, darn.